What's up, you Mullen shareholders and moneymakers? Welcome back to the channel. We are going to talk about ticker symbol MULN, Mullen, Nasdaq traded stock. We have a pretty important week coming up for Mullen Automative. We will be looking further into whether Mullen goes below $1. We had seen that it went to 90 cents, and we are seeing a pretty bearish sentiment in Mullen regardless of where Nasdaq went. If you take a look, Nasdaq was up 0.90%, S&P was up on Friday 1%, and so does Dow Jones. But we are getting some negative sentiment about Mullen. And if you remember, and if you know this channel, by the way, I collect, I research, I analyze, and I share both pros and cons on a particular given stock. Mullen Automative, one of our penny stock that we're looking pretty closely into, and small cap stocks, especially micro cap stocks, were hammered so hard, and Mullen was not an exception. By the way, Mullen has a $500 million in market cap. Take a look, 515 million US dollars. They are looking forward to share with us their financial statements, and that will have $61 million on their balance sheet, which will help Mullen up and running for next couple of quarters. Because if you remember, they are burning about $30 million cash quarter over quarter, 36 million, last quarter 30 million, so in Q1 30 million, Q4 2021 36 million, 14 million, so on and so forth. So their burning rate is 30 million, but lately we are seeing some negative news around Mullen, and I'll be covering all those news. So we'll be covering their CEO sold some stocks, 350,000 shares that Mullen's CEO shared, and this is a pretty fresh news in addition to what they sold in the recent past as well. We'll be also talking about one more particular aspects for Mullen that they did not really announce what we were looking for in terms of Fortune 500 update, which also caused the stock to fall. So if you remember, last 5 days, we're almost down 23%, and we were at $1.40. We closed on Friday at $1.07, $1.08, and it went as down as 90 cents right here, as you know. Before I go ahead, I just wanted to say that I am not a financial advisor. This video is only for the entertainment purposes. This is my way to giving back to community based on my research and analysis as to what I share with you. In the return, all I ask you is, if you're a Mullen shareholder and if you want to spread this video with more and more people, hit the like button. We need at least 250 likes on this video so we can reach out to more and more people. Next week is going to be pretty massive and strategic week for Mullen, MULN, because there could be some positive, there could be some negative. If their Fortune 500 announcement comes out, that will be such a big deal. We'll be also covering some of the aspects around the short volume or short sellers, because there is a pretty good amount of pressure that I see in terms of short sellers, around 48-50 in terms of the short volume ratio. So we'll be covering all that kind of stuff. Before further delay, just make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Now, if you think about Mullen, all in all, we lost 21% in last 1 month. For 6 months, we lost 80%. Which is such a big deal. We were all the way up to $5.50, $5.61. We got back down below $1.61, but from there we picked up pretty big, and we went up 4.5 times, 442% up. And right now we again cut in half from $2.70. We cut down to $1.10 more or less. What is going on? The news around their CEO David sells 350,000 shares of Mullen Automative Inc. caused some of the concerns, because when some insider, especially CEO, starts selling stock, and this is not the first time that we are seeing their CEO sold the stock, it happened a couple of times in the recent past that I'll be covering, which created some of the concerns into the investment community, into the current shareholders, so on and so forth. So you want to once again make informed financial decision. I don't really know why they would be selling, but they own they own millions of shares of Mullen, so they have a pretty good stake, and this is not a huge stake that they're selling, But still, this should be noticed, and here I am sharing this information with you. Based on this article on MarketBeat, Mullen Automative Nasdaq CEO David sold 350,000 shares of business stock in transaction that occurred on Wednesday, June 29th. The shares were sold in on average of $1.12. Now, this is not a case where they're waiting for $1.80, $2.25, so on and so forth. This is sold around the end of Q2, or in other words, yes, around the end of Q2 or very beginning of Q3. So not sure whether that was part of their compensation or anything along those lines, but that accounted for $392,000 US dollars. Following the transaction, the officer directly owns 7.411, so 7.4 million and change all in all based on this MarketBeat article. I found some different number on their filing, but I was not able to confirm which number is right, but we'll go with this article at the moment. The company stock that is owned by CEO valued at $8.3 million. The transaction was disclosed in legal filing and Securities Exchange Commission, which can be seen, of course. But this is the recent made transactions or trades by the CEO that I wanted to put up in front of you. June 15th, sold 150,000 shares of Mullen Automative stock at $1.10, which accounted for 165,000 US dollars. Before that, right before that, in May 23rd, they sold 750,000 shares of Mullen Automative stock that were accounted for $1.01, so $1.01 per share. Transaction was total at $757,500. So this caused some concerns once again, but I wanted to share this information with you. So it's not that they're looking for any particular price. They sold $1.10, $1.01, and the recent one that they sold $1.12. This could be part of the comp or compensation, part of the bonus, so on and so forth. Another thing that I wanted to cover is Mullen as a company did not really announce the Fortune 500 update that we were looking for. In the past, there was an announcement that Mullen will be disclosing who is the Fortune 500 company that they have this vehicle contract with, but we don't really know at the moment, which resulted Mullen that impacted the stock price as well, and the stock price were under pressure last week, as you know. But think about it, if the news comes around next week, that could create a lot of momentum into the stock price. Now, I don't know whether they're going to be announcing this anytime soon, whether the deal is in progress, whether the deal fell through. We don't know. At least I don't know. So take it with a grain of salt. But what I'm saying is, if they don't announce, that will be more negative or adverse impact onto the stock price. But on the flip side, if they announce, there is a possibility that the stock can run up 25, 30, 40%. Once again, this is risk versus reward. This is penny stock and can go either way. And as you know, in the current stock market, the small cap or micro cap stocks were hit hard than any large cap stocks, but they have not provided any update. They said that they will be receiving from Fortune 500 company for an order that we don't really know. Mullen is an electric vehicle startup company, and their share price was down 80% as we know this year. Investors are treating the lack of news on Fortune 500 orders skeptically as to what happened. They don't really mention anything about it, which is one of the concerns at the moment. If they just come out and say like, oh, we did not really get this, but we are working on it and we may have an update within the next 30 days, so on and so forth, that's totally a different impact on the stock price. Now, Mullen shareholders' failure to provide why it matters. Let's talk about why does that matter. Failure to provide any news deal appears have given Mullen shareholders another reason to sell the stock, and Mullen remains a small startup that is small cap stock, unprofitable at the moment. We know that they're burning $30 million quarter over quarter. They have $61 million to begin with, but they're spending money at the rapid clip, and that's acceptable because that's how the innovative startup, especially when it comes to EV battery, around what they're trying to do with 600 miles on a single full charge, I totally understand. Now, another thing is this fact can help the big decline into the stock price if they announce more. Now, why we also thought that around the end of June, they will start spiking up. One of the reasons we saw that they were announcing the Fortune 500 company, number one. They're also waiting for that pilot program that they will be announcing on their pilot program information as to how their pilot is going and what they're going to do in terms of the EV vehicle. Another biggest thing that we were also waiting on the top of this PR was the Russell 2000 and 3000 launch, which did not happen. By the way, it did happen, but the stock price did not really go higher because this Fortune 500 announcement that was supposed to come out did not come out, and it took the precedence over the Russell 2000, Russell 3000. So I totally get it. What happened? Why that happened? Another reason why the stock hammered hard was the short volume ratio. Now I took a look at Fintel, as you see right here. We are looking at 48.65% off exchange short volume ratio, which is high in my opinion, especially when the stock price is $1. And if you take a look, they had 37 million in FINRA volume, where 18 million was the short volume. So you want to consider that as well. 48.65, pretty huge short volume ratio. Before that, 50.50. 52.88, 34, 46, 50. That's a pretty high short volume ratio for a very small stock price. So just take it once again with grain of salt. These are the reasons as to why MULN slashed 25% within the last few weeks. More importantly, why it went down 80% year to date, which is a massive decline in terms of the stock price. But there are some positive catalysts. If you think about the upside down, now what could happen? What are the catalysts? Number one, of course, if the short volume pressure goes away or releases a little bit, that will be a positive catalyst for the stock price. So we talked about cons. Now I want to talk about pros as well, and why someone can double their money. Probably 50% return on investment, whoever bought it at 90 cents. Let's talk about that. Mullen has plethora of positive catalysts coming up in June and now in July. Their official started that we want to further learn is what happened with Fortune 500 company that was supposed to be announcing by the end of June. The news came out around mid-May, or precisely May 12th. Mullen is working for the press release, as they mentioned, for Fortune 500 customer as we speak, maintain Q2 time frame. The press release on this matter will be out and expected by the end of June. Now, if that happens early July, fine, the stock will start going back up. Now, another thing that you also want to note is, remember, the CEO selling stock creates some of the negative sentiment in the community as well. But Mullen also announced the impressive solid state polymer battery test results. As we know, because of this result, the battery test results, Mullen started negotiating with a couple of major OEMs. So those manufacturers could potentially come up with the licensing deal, which is another new stream of revenue for such a small startup company with a $500 million in valuation. Mullen's vision is to share technology with everyone, all sorts of device, equipment, instruments, including cell phones, power tools. So this is pretty ambitious, and that can create a pretty big substantial revenue stream for the company. Now, this is all baked into the innovation, and we don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm just saying that could be a catalyst. They're also working on significant transaction. Once they get the aggregated confirmation from the shareholders to do $275 million worth of approval with a strong vote of confidence, and they will be getting into this agreement with certain investors. And that also means that there will be some sort of dilution in terms of the stock price for the future that Mullen can invest for the future within the company, so on and so forth. Now, the volume remains pretty significantly more or less the same, 70 million. That's the average volume. The volume on Friday was 61 million. If you take a look right now, the volume is pretty much between 50 and 60 million, 61, 125 million, 56, 51, 58, 48, so on and so forth. So the volume is not really causing some concern. The concern once again is the declining price point. It slashed down just 50%, just in no time. $1.51 went to 90 cents. Could be an opportunity, could be a real bearish movement into the stock price. Let's talk about how the stock traded. So we see the stair steps down. I call it stair steps down because we were here around $1.50. We went to in the zone of $1.15 to 20 cents, and now we are in the zone of 90 cents to $1.10. So it's a staircase down we are seeing at the moment. Take it with, once again, grain of salt, but there are pros and then there are cons. We'll see how that next week goes, but the next week is going to be one of the bigger week in terms of the strategic importance, as well as we want to see where the stock price goes, whether it goes below $1 and stays there, or it goes up and above $1.25 and starts moving towards closer to $1.50. I'll keep you posted. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. At the least, click the like button. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching once again.